Before we get into this episode, we wanted to make a quick announcement. We usually try to keep this show pretty lighthearted. However, this particular episode does feature topics that might be sensitive for certain members of our audience. We will be discussing drugs, suicide, and death at length throughout the show. If these are topics that might be upsetting to you, please keep this in mind before proceeding with this episode. Welcome to Distorted Opinions. I'm Kayla, and as always, I'm joined by Matt and Ted, and we're going into our first episode, going into our second season here.
Third season? Second season?
Third season. Third.
Sorry, not season, year. Second year.
Second year.
Sorry.
Yes.
Second year,
we just
third
had
season.
First year, last year, or first year, last episode. Jeez, Louise, I cannot talk
Hey,
today.
we're starting on this thing off.
It's going to be a great show. You know it's going to be a
Welcome to
great
Distorted
show.
Opinions, the sister of the cousin of the dogs, fish, cousins, step uncle show.
Okay.
Sure.
Yep, cool. Moving on.
So before we get too far into today's show topic, I think maybe we should probably put a disclaimer out there on this one that we're probably going to be discussing some topics today that might be sensitive to some of our viewers and listeners, and they are certainly not topics that we take lightly. So, you know, if you have some issues with drug use or, you know, potentially abuse and those sorts of things, then this might not be the episode for you. So just want to put that out there up front. So today's topic, we're going to be discussing the life experiences of artists and whether or not those experiences make and impact the music.
Or make
I know
the music better, or you know,
Right.
how that
Wouldn't be what
all
it
comes
was.
together. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I know for me, when we talked about doing this as a show topic, I think automatically the grunge era as a whole is just, I was talking to Matt before the show started, and I can't think of a single artist or band from the grunge era that their music isn't somehow tied into drug use or some form of addiction. And, you know, sadly, a number of well-known musicians from that era lost their lives due to that drug use. So, you know,
it's not so much just drug use we're talking about. We're also talking about, you know, life experiences of,
sure,
you know, depression.
Right.
And, you know, obviously in the recent years, we've lost some great artists that, you know, we spoke of before in previous episodes. And I think we even touched upon, you know, leading up to this episode, you know, really taking advantage of artists out there and not realizing until, unfortunately, that they're no longer here, that, wow, you know, through their music, they were really expressing help. And now we're just realizing this. So really one of the questions that comes to mind is, how can we prevent this, or at least attempt to prevent this moving forward with such talented artists out there that give so much, you know, creativity to what we know today. So it's, you know, I just want to jump in.
Second question, you know, because obviously there is music in itself from an artist perspective is just an expression of, you know, what they're feeling, how they're feeling. And, you know, most songs tend to come from that direction. You know, writing the lyrics or things like that just comes out in that way. So that's certainly one factor. But then on the other side of that, you know, you do have, I was going to try to think of songs that, you know, there are great songs, I think, that, you know, don't have lyrics. They're just a general, you know, happy expression, if you will, translated into music. And, you know, it's not necessarily all coming from necessarily a bad life experience, or maybe that is on the back end. Things went really well, and then they wanted to translate that part of it towards a song, which I guess it could be the counter argument to that. But I feel like as a whole, life experience of a musical artist, whether it be the abuse or drug use or addiction of sorts, depression, things like that, they do, I feel like, make the music more real, because there is whatever they're feeling, and it's such a common feeling amongst
a relation,
the audience. Someone's experiencing whatever they're experiencing on a different level. So I think because of that connection, the song becomes quote unquote better based on the tie and how you feel and relate to that song, which certainly is an important part. But yeah, I mean, just initially, to sum up the question, I think it can, answer the answer to that question is yes. But there's certainly lots of avenues we can dissect that based on the different music artists that I think you're both referencing. So we can jump into that direction too.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I singled out the grunge era just because I think that's kind of an obvious choice that, anybody who's listened to any of that music or knows anything about those bands, I think kind of what the history is there. Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Stone Temple Pilots, all of them. And particularly Alice in Chains, a lot of their music, if you listen to the lyrics, a lot of that is those guys talking about their addiction and the struggles that they had with addiction. And, Kurt Cobain struggled, I think, with both addiction and depression. Stone Temple Pilots, Scott Weiland, I mean, talk about another one that a hugely talented guy, and he struggled with addiction for years, and unfortunately it got the better of him in the end. And Chris Cornell, I mean, it's just that is an obvious era to choose from, but there are plenty of other musicians. I know was it a couple of weeks ago, I think we were talking after one of the shows, and I think it might have been you, Ted, brought up Jonathan Davis from Korn and his life experiences of, being abused, and, how did that impact Korn's music? So yeah, it's not just addiction. There's a lot of other things in people's lives that I think impact their songwriting, for sure.
Well, and on the Jonathan Davis front, he also worked at a funeral home.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
So just more, I feel like you have to be in a certain headspace to, I mean, it's an important job, don't get me wrong, but
right.
you got to be in a certain headspace to work in a place like that.
Sure.
So,
sure.
I mean, there's that aspect of it too, but,
sure.
But yeah, no, I think there's definitely lots of artists, and like even for some of the quote unquote psychedelic era, this Jimi Hendrix of things,
Janis Joplin.
Yeah. Like just some of the musical choices, how drugs might have impacted the songs in that way. Or, I mean, I have nothing to back this up, and it's just hypothetical, but some of the inventive sounds that Jimi Hendrix came up with,
sure.
Is that something he heard in his head based on a trip he was on, and it's like, I gotta put this sound together, and is that a factor? Boy, it makes him notable. Sure. If that were the case. Sure. But yeah, no, there's definitely drugs can certainly send thoughts in a different direction, and can make music better. I don't know, sometimes if you're drinking and you're playing music, it's not as good as it actually sounds in your head.
Well, yeah. And that's, I mean, the guys from Metallica have talked before about how some of their early shows were probably not as good as they thought they were, because they were all trashed when they were playing. I mean, that's just, they were called Alcoholica for a long time for a reason. And I mean, that's another band that a lot of the earlier songs in particular, are attributed to either, James has a known problem with alcohol and has spent some time in rehab over the years. And, but in particular, the Black Album, I believe Nothing Else Matters. I think it was Nothing Else Matters. Hopefully I'm not mistaken on which song, but anyway, I believe was about his mother, and his mother passed away when he was very young. I believe she had cancer, and his family, they were Christian Scientists. So medicine was not a thing that they believed in. And so his mother passed away at a young age. I don't think he had a very good relationship with his father. And I think a lot of that came out in his songwriting, but yeah, the alcohol thing, it maybe for the songwriting aspect, I don't know so much about the performing aspect sometimes, but yeah, that it could go either way, I guess, in that regard.
Yeah, it reminds me also, while we're on this topic, it makes me think about Slipknot. And in the early days of Slipknot, the band was very angry, clearly depressed. There was a lot of addiction things. And as the years went on, go ahead. What was that?
I was going to say, listen to the album Left Iowa.
Yeah, Iowa in particular. As time went on, things in their lives changed, or Corey Taylor in particular, and he didn't need to always be in the headspace that was required to be in Slipknot, and to be angry like that. So here comes Stone Sour, which was obviously in a different realm than what Slipknot was. And then now his solo stuff, which is in a whole different, even further into a new direction of music on his solo career. And we even wanting to get back on tour with Slipknot, because they are touring again this year. I saw an interview where he couldn't always be in that headspace, and it takes a lot to get down into that dark place, and he doesn't like being there these days, but it's part of the gig and what that band embodies. And sure, it's still a part of him, but part of that is shut it, either he's trying to shut that part of, close that door permanently, I guess, and try to move on and, leave that angry era behind. But at the same time, it's certainly a notable band to be in. So, you're touring because, lead singer is Slipknot. So I just found that an interesting comment that, here's someone everyone's very familiar with, but having a hard time getting into the headspace to be on stage performing that as the years go on, because he's not angry like he was back in the earlier years.
And I think that kind of leads to some maybe additional discussion, which is, again, going back to Metallica. There are a lot of people, and we've talked about this on previous shows, that don't like the newer stuff because the band, James has been to rehab, and he's kind of said similar things. I mean, honestly, does anybody like being in that kind of headspace? I don't think anybody likes being in that kind of headspace, but I think the bigger question is,
does that take away from the creativity of it?
Right. Would people still enjoy that music if it didn't have that aspect of it? Because that music maybe wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for that. And, Metallica, they've evolved over the years, and those guys all have families now, or they've had families for a while, and they've tried to, I think, clean up their act a little bit, and it's changed the music. And some people don't like that. Some people, it's all like, everything. Some people, it's everything after Injustice for All. Some people, it's everything after Master of Puppets. And some people, it's everything after the Black Album. But it's pretty much like anybody who doesn't like anything after the Black Album, that's like, nope, the old Metallica, that's it. And, I'm not sure I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I think maybe the answer to the question is, that music isn't possible without those experiences, but they're not, it's not a, like you said, it's not a good headspace to be in, and to be in that headspace.
Creative
constantly.
outlet at the same time. You know, you need to express how you're feeling in the moment, and certainly if that's all it took, or you know, you worked out therapeutically by writing all these songs, and you got it out there. The world has it. All right. Next thing, you know, you don't have to always be in that space, to your point. And I don't think anyone prefers to be in that space intentionally. But I do think a lot of the songwriting is more just a way to express the angst, if you will. Pick your genre, you know, for just getting that out of your system or expressing how you're feeling. Which,
you know, I think, I think one of the things, and just coming from like a songwriter's perspective, like obviously we all have written, you know, tunes, we've all, you know, created music. I think from a songwriter's perspective is that I think what makes a good song is definitely having feeling behind it. You could easily tell, you know, if there's a piece of shit out there that, you know, was just written with no feeling behind it, or really doesn't even make any sense, that, you know, you could, it's one of those aspects that it's either lyrically, again, we talked about this in a previous episode, that if it's lyrically gonna get you or music's gonna get you. But to your point, Ted, is that with experiences, you know, our audience out there and the audiences out there all need some sort of a therapeutic way of that expression. And actually, and ironically, I have a tattoo here that says, "Where words fail, music speaks." Pure example of, you know, what we're talking about today. And I think the best way to express that is to go ahead and have those feelings behind it. I mean, I think that's kind of really what gives the backbone of what a song is about. Relation to it. You may have those that are struggling, that may not know how to relate to it, but there are songs out there that save people because of songs that are out there, because of one's difficultiness in life can save another person's life later on down the road. So it's like that yin and yang effect. So while addiction, let's just use an example. While maybe addiction gives a number one hit, that number one hit may also save a person's life down the road by relation to it, and saying, hey, you know what? I feel exactly what you're feeling, but it's going to be okay in the end. Ironically, I was just listening, and it's actually on my playlist. It's on my Spotify now, but we've all heard of 6 a.m. Okay, Nikki Sixx, Motley Crue. Well, he recently did a charity for the charity was called, and I have it up here, Artists for Recovery. And not sure if you guys heard it. I definitely highly recommend checking out, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually a re-recording of a old 2016 song called Maybe It's Time, off of the Prayers for the Bliss album, the 5th album. But Nikki Sixx got a collaboration of all these artists from not just from one genre, but from all different genres, all relating to the exact same point of what they experienced, and also what people are experiencing out there too. So maybe it's not so much just the charity for artists, but it's also really a charity for everyone that's struggling has a recovery. So the song's called Maybe It's Time, and the artists that are on this recording is Slipknot, Corey Taylor, Def Leppard's Joe Elliott, country artist Brantley Gilbert, Five Finger Death Punch Ivan Moody, Slash is on the album, members of AWOL Nation, and also Tommy Vex from Bad Wolves. Highly recommend it. It's a great tune. Not only is it catchy, but just the harmonies, and again, not so much just about one specific genre, but even as an artist, it doesn't matter what genre you're in. You know, again, if with these artists that have expressed or have been down that road of addiction or depression, have written these songs, but now with this song saying, hey, you know what, it's time to recalibrate, because if I don't, who knows if I'm going to be able to continue doing what I love doing. So highly recommend checking that tune and whatnot. We may use that as one of the song of the weeks, just like kind of like.
I was going to say you're going to get 2 song of the weeks out of this.
Yeah, 2 song of the weeks and whatnot. But this is like especially for those that, you know, are listening, and for those that are listening and can relate to, you know, what we're talking about. Obviously, you know, there are sources out there that can, you know, help that can help you whatnot. But if you're one of those people that really can relate to tunes and, you know, can help you get out of that dark space, I definitely recommend checking this song out. It's, you know, it's uplifting. It's making sure that, you know, you're loved, you're cared for, and you know, everything's gonna be okay in the end. But just wanted to, you know, point that out, that, you know, again, I think experiences definitely can bring out the better half of the backbone of what songs could be. But Kayla, to your point, I think the real question comes about is, you know, you can't have 2 pieces of the pie. Okay, so great songs, but you have a darkness behind it. Well, if you get rid of that darkness, now from a listener's or an audience's perspective, does that change the whole dynamic of how you view the band? Well, were you a fan then because they did have problems? They were dark? Or are you real fans because of the actual music behind it? So that is all, and that could actually probably be another discussion later on down the road too. But, you know, for audiences are listening out there, I mean, give us your opinion on that one. You know, do you think that could you continue on listening to a band that say they clean up, and would you still support them? But yeah, maybe their music deteriorates, or, you know, maybe, I'm sorry, not deteriorates, but maybe their music changes a little bit different because they're not so much in that headspace as what Ted was mentioning. So let us know what you think about that one.
I was going to go back to your first question you teed up on the initial segue, and we're like, hold that thought. We're going to come back around to that. Now I forget what that question was.
The artist life experiences, or something different?
It was like the segue question that Matt had immediately following. And I had it ready to go, and then that question popped in, and then I just totally got steamrolled with the.
Let's rewind.
Let's see, where was I going with this? Oh, that's right. So for artists that are going through those experiences, and in hindsight, you know, you look at the music and you see it as a cry for help, or a you know, get based on the expression of the songs. You know, it obviously gives greater context if, you know, I look at every Linkin Park song completely different now than I ever did before. Sure. Through a different lens based on what happened. And so for all of those things, like it for me, a lot of the bands, or basically all the bands, put out great music. I don't necessarily pull back the curtain and think about what headspace they were in when they wrote it. I am very seemingly take it for granted, if you will. Here's the song. I love it. I'm rolling with it. Not thinking about the effort that went in, or, you know, where the push from behind, you know, behind the music, behind the scenes, orchestrating the whole thing, angst, anger, whatever it is behind it. I tend, or I mean, maybe I'm just naive to the thought, but for the longest time have been in that, listening to music in that way, where the artist is on a pedestal. They've put out good music. I consume it. I enjoy it. And then don't really think more, you know, of the human aspect behind that. And, you know, maybe they are struggling. Maybe there are, you know, other things going on their personal end that I don't maybe
we
it's
don't
not,
know
it's not showcased to the world necessarily.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like it's all behind closed doors, so you don't really think about it. And until something of larger magnitude happens, unfortunately, then it really changes the perspective. And it's like, oh, we could have, you know, hindsight's 2020 in general, but
Sure.
you know, looking at music differently, you know, for some of those types of songs, you know, how do you, I don't know, there is really no good answer, I don't think,
Right.
to, you know, see, because I feel like music, as we've already said, is just a expression of how you're feeling and working through whatever you need to work through, if that were to be your medium in creating music.
It's like
Well,
an
I think-
indirect and direct release of feeling,
Right.
you know, versus just coming out and saying, I need help. Where? You know, it's how do you begin? So
Right.
I think, you know, to that point, Ted, you know, again, it's how do you release it? And you release it through the music. And yeah, I think as listeners, we do take advantage of it. We do take advantage of, you know, great tunes. And then if we don't really listen to it until something drastically changes, you know, I'm with you, Ted, and what I can't look at a Linkin Park's tune now without really analyzing, oh, wow, this could be really analyzed as a scream for help. So I think, you know, moving forward that, you know, if there's anything that from a music perspective and from a listener and audience perspective that maybe, you know, artists who support other artists out there, you know, check in with them, you know, hate to say it, but kind of the buddy system. Like,
And,
hey,
and
check
to
in.
go back to your other point earlier, music can save a listener's life, as you know, or it gets you through a hard time because you relate on that level. So,
100%.
I mean, the music is very real, provides raw emotion based on actual experience, but it's also the actual experience that the listener has, and then it just all trickles downstream
matches.
and
It's a
fits.
marriage.
You know, it all ties in. So that's another factor. So yeah, it's complicated.
Well, and
Very
I think
complicated.
a little bit of it too goes back to I don't think it was our last episode, but the episode before that, where we were talking about the three of us in particular, that we don't necessarily pay attention to the lyrics as closely as we do the actual music. So I think that also plays into it a bit too. Like I can certainly tell you that I look at a lot of different songs differently. You know, now that particularly, okay, so for example, I'm just going to go back to grunge for a minute here. Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Stone Temple Pilots. I listen to a lot of their songs now, and I have a very different perspective on those songs based on the fact that we've lost guys from those bands due to addiction, and actually paying closer attention to the lyrics and realizing what those songs are actually about. Because for me, most of the time when I listen to those songs, I hear the guitar, I hear the instrumentation, and that's what stands out to me. I hear the lyrics, but I don't really
You don't analyze
absorb
it
them
unless
and
you're
process
looking
them.
up for it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I mean, I think that does play into it too. And same thing with Linkin Park. It's like, you know, you hear the music there, but I don't think I've ever paid close attention to the lyrics until recent years. And now it's like, oh, that's like you said, Matt, maybe a cry for help of, you know, something was going on here and this was obviously a struggle. But then you do have the people who can relate to that and find that therapeutic. So it's, I think it's all in, you know, how you process the music too. And, you
Right.
know, again, maybe the songs would have been different. Maybe the instrumentation would have been different without those experiences, but
Sure.
And that's where I was also thinking on instrumentation or at the very
Right.
beginning, because we
with
do
Jimi Hendrix.
yeah, Hendrix and just, you know, altering your state to be creative in a way to invent new sounds or, you know, there's that end. We've been on the more, the other side of the coin there, but
Right.
There's certainly, for inventive sounds and I don't know, just musicianship, and I don't know, just think of like a random band like Primus and inventing what a bass can do,
Right.
as a star in a song, being creative in that way, and all their songs are silly, like a little acid trip or whatever probably assisted some of those sailing on the seas of cheese, if you will.
Jerry was a race car driver.
Tommy the Cat. Like there's so many. But those are I feel like definitely enhanced songs,
Right.
from Drugs on that end.
Well, who doesn't have that song stuck in their head now? Just like you say Primus, and that's the first song that comes to mind, and it's like immediately I've got it playing through my head like it's on
Winona's Big Brown Beaver. There's a lot of gems.
Oh yeah.
And I think that gives a great segue to going in, because, I bet there is one audience member out there that's saying, well, hey, why are we talking about negative? There's always positive experiences too. And now, in which, I think it's a great segue to say that, artists that don't have the darkness behind them, okay, can go ahead and bring a different element of creativity, especially with life experiences. So from a positive standpoint, if there's one band that I could think of at the top of my head right now that definitely talks about life experiences indirectly, is the band Blink-182. I mean, how many Blink-182 songs can you think of where they haven't mentioned the age of being at 17? So the thing that I think of is, whenever I think of a Blink-182 song, is that it's always in reference to the high school years. Okay, the experiences, whether it's first time getting laid to first time going to a party, first time having a beer chug, and anything like that of some sort. So when I think of experiences, but also from a positive standpoint, is Blink-182. I mean, Ted, we played, 20 years ago in our band 5 Amp Fuse. One of the songs we played was Damn It. And the lyric is, I guess this is called Growing Up. Perfect example of life experiences. So from a positive standpoint, we have bands out there that reference experiences maybe from what they've experienced, what they've witnessed, anything like that. So now we also have a different perspective of audiences, especially from that age group, or even today, growing up with them, that, oh yeah, I kind of remember being 17 and being like, oh, cool, it got explicit content. Awesome.
The hard part, Green Day, I mean, Blink-182, they just had the same sound forever, and it's like they stopped aging. Like their music was meant for high school, and it just rides from 20 years worth, 25 years worth. Like it's kind of funny. I feel like obviously I zero in on the era where those songs that we played back in the day, nostalgic at this point for us, and what, because we played them, and they're catchy that way. But after high school, never kept up with them. Didn't listen to anything else on, from them, and, Green Day or any of the other groups. I know they released music. Couldn't tell you. It was just an era of time where focused in on that music. And yeah, I associate all of those times with that music, but I just left. That's a sound of high school, and then I just moved on because I'm not in high school, right? So
it's funny, when we were in the band, and I back then it was kind of like one of those, hey, you just sort of brush it off. But now growing up and kind of maturing and whatnot, it's a great. I'll probably say it's kind of like a compliment now. But I know that when we were in 5 Amp Fuse, we played so much Blink-182 and so much Green Day, and we thought that, we weren't going to play Metallica because it was shit, which obviously, hey, no, it isn't. We were just stupid back then.
I didn't say that.
You didn't say that.
That needs to be clear.
Like,
I never said that.
Hey, listen,
on the record, I never said that. They were just advanced than my guitar skill.
We also talked about, what do you just blame the band, or you blame the independent member? Just blame me on that one. I'll take full 100% credit. Love Metallica though. Okay, why?
He's saving himself. He's backpedaling 20 years later.
Balls drop more. So, but one of the things that especially since I heard one, and I get a chuckle out of it now, but like, we've had classmates that were like, oh, hey, if you want to go see Green Day, you might as well just go see, or Blink-182, might as well just go see 5 Amp Fuse, because that's how much we played. I mean, at this point, if you think about it, we might as well have just been a friggin' cover band. But it's just kind of like one of those things.
Where, we had originals too, but
yeah, we had originals.
Yeah, we definitely primarily cover band at that point.
But I think, even back then, and to your point, Ted, is that, we played in that era and we played songs that could relate to our classmates, maybe who were silent on what they were feeling, during that time. So again, Damn It, I think was a great upbeat tune because it's just kind of like releasing, getting your wildness out. We had, people going crazy every time we played that song. So again, I think it's one of those things that, again, how can
it's got a killer hook though.
It really does.
Yeah. Good tune.
It really does. So it's just funny, but
yeah.
Metallica is not shit. I love Metallica. They're just stupid. Like, hey, listen, when we're teenagers, we're all stupid. Okay.
I can't believe those words ever came out of your mouth. I'm disappointed.
I know. Well, actually, I love Metallica. I will not backpedal on Saint Anger, and we talked about it multiple times.
That's true.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you there. I would agree with you there. You're not going to get an argument from me on that one. Oh man.
Done. Okay, we're done. We had to throw that in.
Now that we've taken a nice trip down memory lane there.
Yeah. I was going to say, I feel like we've sufficiently, answered the question of the week.
Yeah, I think so.
With a unanimous yes. But I think Song of the Week time. Mm-hmm. Guys, I think ready for that?
Let's make it happen.
You guys want me to go ahead and I'll do my usual reminder. All right. So
Song
before we
of the week.
There we go.
That's not the official jingle.
It isn't, but it kind of is lately. So
it is. The past 3 episodes I noticed.
Yeah. So before we get into our picks, just the usual reminder, if you're new to the show, we have a Spotify Song of the Week playlist. We put all of our picks in their entirety into that playlist. If you've missed one of our previous picks, you can find that there. You'll also find today's picks there. And if you're watching the video version of the show, we're also doing a new thing where we put a scan code up on the screen. So all you have to do is open up your Spotify app on your phone or mobile device, and where the search bar is, click the little scan button with your camera, hold it up to the screen, and it will take you right to the playlist. If you're listening to the audio only version, we'll put the link in the description. We'll also go ahead and put it into the video description as well. But
you are going to be missing out on seeing our faces, though. But it's okay.
That's right. And sometimes there's funny stuff that happens that might warrant wanting to check out the video. So, but we try to make it work for both sides. So if you're an audio only listener, we'll put the link in the description. You can click on it and it will take you to the playlist. So with that, my pick for this week is Rain When I Die by Alice in Chains off of 1992's Dirt. And I hadn't heard this song in a while, and I saw a former bandmate and friend of mine, Steve, shout out to Steve if you're listening to the show, was playing this on Facebook the other day, doing a cool, funky cover of it, because Steve does this really cool stuff. He puts a twist on songs that's like, it's very unique to Steve, and I enjoy seeing his videos. But I saw him playing this one, and I started listening to it again. I was like, you know what? I think this is a good pick, because if you're not a big Alice in Chains fan, you maybe haven't heard it. I don't think it got a lot of radio play at the time. It's on the same album that had Rooster and Wood, which are probably more well-known than Rain When I Die. But it opens up with drums and some heavy bass, and Jerry comes in and he's kind of playing some some stuff noodling on the guitar a little bit, and then Lane comes in with some vocals and the very unique stylings of Lane Staley, and then it comes in with probably one of the coolest riffs I think of any Alice in Chains song. And you know, again, you want to talk about a band that probably wouldn't have written some of the songs that they did if it weren't for their drug use. Lane had actually apparently checked out of rehab while they were recording this album and almost immediately went back to using heroin again. And apparently had kind of held a grudge with the album's producer, Dave Jordan, because Dave was constantly urging him to get himself clean while they were recording this album. And I guess Lane just got really annoyed with that. And, you know, he unfortunately was not the only one that battled addiction in that band. Sean Kinney, the drummer, and Mike Starr, who was the bassist at the time, were both struggling with alcoholism. Mike Starr actually died back in 2011 because of a prescription drug overdose. And I mean, he had been in rehab quite a few times for drug use. And, you know, so unfortunately it's not totally shocking that that's what ultimately led to his death. But, you know, there's so much drug use in that band. And honestly, I thought this song was about drug use until I started trying to find out more about it for this show and realized that apparently Rain When I Die was actually written by Lane and Jerry about their respective girlfriends at the time, which was kind of, I thought, unusual.
Interesting.
not what I was expecting to find out. I really thought for sure that it was going to be about drug use. So, you know, again, just one of those bands that so many of their songs, especially on that album, had to do with drug use and addiction. But if you haven't heard it, check it out. It is a really great tune, Rain When I Die, off of Dirt from Alice in Chains. And that is my pick of the week. So with that, who wants to go next?
Matt, what do you got?
I'll jump. All right. So, for the first time ever. So, I'm not gonna lie, went into this episode and I was like, whoops. Didn't do a song of the week until Kayla and I had a conversation before this episode, and she said grunge, and I went, boom, thought of a band. So, band I'm going to be talking about, the song of the week I'm going to be talking about.
The big reveal.
Is.
There's a lot of hype. Drum roll.
Where's Ted with the drum roll?
Smashing Pumpkins, baby. Smashing Pumpkins. I think one of those bands that they were big back then, took a little nap, came back not that recently, and still rocking out to this day. I think one of those bands, Billy Corgan, James Iha, I mean, all those guys and whatnot. I really wish if we talked about, since we're talking about this type of an episode, it would be really great to have the full lineup, and I'm talking about the full lineup because of Darcy, the bass player, who unfortunately was also one of those victims hurt to addiction and whatnot, which led to the release of her being out of the band and whatnot. But it would be nice for her to kind of clean up and get back in and whatnot. But that's the latest I've been hearing. But the song I'm going to be talking about is off of the album Melancholy in the Infinite Sadness. No, I am not talking about Bullet with Butterfly Wings. No, I'm not talking about 1979. I am talking about Zero. The song Zero. Phenomenal hard rock, grungy type of get in your face type of a tune. When you're thinking of Melancholy, Infinite Sadness, and you're thinking of songs like 1979, and then you go to Bullet with Butterfly Wings, it's completely two different directions. But with Zero, it's like that. It's like Bullet with Butterfly Wings, and then let's go over the edge with it. Hard rock. I was looking more into this tune and didn't know this, but this song specifically has not one, not two, not even three, but 6 rhythm guitars and 2 line-in 12-string acoustics to this song, just this song alone.
Holy cow.
So it's not only just a kick-ass tune, but just the dynamics and the science behind the actual creation of the song. You're talking about 8 guitars for such, what sounds to be maybe just 1 or 2 guitars kind of doubled to one, but it's just phenomenal. But this song, it's just great. Not only was it off of the album, the two CD album, but it was also off of an EP called Pistachio Medley. So it's just great. I can't explain. I mean, it's Billy Corgan has this, like, he obviously has a very unique voice, but he's got like this. It's like soft, and then it's like going from like a rom-com movie to psychedelic thriller. Okay, with his vocals, he's soft, medley, pony-like, and then all of a sudden, I'm gonna rip your face off with a bear. Okay, screaming kind of aspects and whatnot. So that's what I think of Zero, because when he's singing, he goes from like a regular singing, and then he goes to like this high screaming pitch type of thing. So it's just awesome.
Speaking of Billy Corgan, if anyone has seen the YouTube clip of the meme that was created with the roller coaster. And the roller coaster's going up the hill, and it's like a 15-second clip. It's roller coaster going up a hill, and then
You mean Lane Staley?
Lane Staley?
There's a Lane Staley one too. There's a multiple version.
Is there a Billy Corgan
multiple.
one? Oh, I haven't seen the Billy Corgan one.
Yeah, it just kind of goes downhill, and then it wee like just holds this note all the way down. It's really funny. Sorry, made me think of it.
We don't even care. No, yeah. What Ted is referencing is it
made me think of it. It's a really funny YouTube clip. Why do you even search for to get that?
All you have to look up for is roller coaster Billy Corgan, and you'll see it. And it's just Billy Corgan. I think it's actually called Billy Corgan on a roller coaster or enjoys a roller coaster, and they just stretch out when he says "we" in the lyrics. We don't even care from 1979. So he just goes "we."
So in 15 seconds, I highly recommend just looking up that meme.
Definitely do. So that's my song of the week. It's Zero off of Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. Ted, what do you got?
I'm gonna reference a song in a band that we've already talked about in the show, because that's typically what I do. In Primus, Time of the Cat has to be on the playlist because it's phenomenal. Some fun facts about this song. I mean, it came out in 1991, and it was featured briefly in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. So it was in the film during the Battle of the Bands portion, apparently.
Okay.
And Primus was in the movie performing it in the movie. And in the recording of this song, Tom Waits did the voice of Tommy the Cat into the studio. But when live, Les Claypool does both parts. Fun facts. So if you haven't heard it, you need to. It's fantastic and hilarious and catchy because it's Primus, and it's got incredible bass because it's Primus, and the drums nice and crisp, holding the whole thing together. Can't say enough. It's excellent, and why it's my song of the week.
I'm kind of surprised, quite honestly, that Primus hasn't made it into a song of the week pick yet.
It took a year.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Wait.
Somehow. I mean, there's so many good bands, right? Like
there are.
Our playlist is all over the place, literally.
It is. Yes, it is for sure. Well, I mean, I think speaking of which, we've completed this episode. Unless you guys have anything to add, we've added a few more.
Full complete episode into the new year.
That's right.
Into the new year.
The podcast year.
That's right.
The year of the podcast.
Well, the last year's been the year of the podcast. I'll be curious to see what this next year brings with things kind of resuming a little bit of normalcy here.
We'll continue it.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll have guests. We got guests to line up too.
Lineup of guests.
That's right. So as a reminder, speaking of which, if you're interested in being a guest on the show, or maybe if you have a suggestion for a future topic, reach out to us and let us know. And if you've been following the show for a while, you probably know how to reach us. But just in case you're new, there's a few ways you can reach out to us. You can leave us a voice message on our Anchor page at anchor.fm/distorted opinions. We also have a partial list of all the places the show's available in audio only format, as well as links to our social media platforms. Or you can just search Distorted Opinions and all of those different places, and you'll probably find us. The other way you can reach out to us is by email, and our email address is distortedopinionshow@gmail.com. You can also leave a comment on any of our social media platforms, and we check those out as well. So with that, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next week with a whole new episode.
Thank you.
See you then.
Bye-bye.
Creepy.